I stood in the crystal grand ballroom holding an embossed invitation with my legal name on it. The name my father had a judge strike from his will 21 years ago, and I could smell his chemotherapy through his cologne from across the room. The invitation had arrived in certified mail with a return address from Langford and Associates, attorneys at law, and inside was cream cardstock with raised lettering spelling out my full name correctly for the first time since I was 17. Sloane Marie Langford Vance, not erased, not redacted, invited. My father stood at the microphone in a suit that cost more than the trailer I lived in the year after he threw me out, and in that moment Richard Langford finally understood something he had spent 21 years making sure I never would. November, Detroit, 2023, and he needed me more than I had ever needed him. Before I go any further, be honest with yourself here. What would you have actually done? Not the version you tell people, what you would have actually done. Half the people I have told this to say they understand my choice, the other half say it makes me just as bad as him, and both sides have made me think. Drop your answer, I read them. The ballroom smelled like November Detroit always smells. Rust from the old GM plants across the river, dead lake water. Something burning that stopped burning decades ago, but left a permanent scar in the air, and over all of it Channel Number 5 and desperation in a rented tuxedo. The Crystal Grand sits on the riverfront where the old money pretends the new poverty does not exist. Floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views of shuttered factories and billion-dollar stadiums, carpet that still carries the scent of 2008, and chandeliers that try. They really do. 200 people filled the space, and I knew maybe 40 of them. Church people, mostly deacons and elders, the kind of Christians who tithe 10% and vote against school lunch programs. Women in dresses that cost $300 trying to look like they did not cost $300, men with Rotary Club pins and municipal board positions and mortgages on houses in Grosse Pointe, that they will die still paying. My father built his entire reputation in rooms like this. I was 17 the last time I stood in one, and that time I was being erased. This time I was holding the eraser. I need to tell you about the yellow envelope. I carried it in my purse for 6 years before I understood what I was going to do with it. A legal-sized manila envelope slightly bent at one corner with 3 pages inside, notarized, filed with Oakland County on March 14, 2002. Declaration of Disinheritance and Severance of Parental Rights and Obligations. My name, my unborn daughter's name, Lily, though he did not know I had already chosen it. Both of us severed legally and permanently, and any descendants thereof. 3 pages to unmake a person. I had carried it so long the paper had gone soft at the edges. The plan was always to use it, I just did not know when, or how, or what it would cost. 21 years earlier, I sat on the porch of the house on Fairview Avenue, and my father sat beside me with 2 glasses of lemonade, telling me about the difference between legacy and inheritance. Legacy is what people say about you when you are not in the room. He told me inheritance is just money. Any fool can leave money, but it takes a man of vision to leave a legacy. He gestured toward the neighborhood, modest houses, working class, teachers and plumbers and union electricians, people who went to church on Sunday and watched their pennies and believed that America worked if you worked. I am building something, he told me, not just for me but for you, for your children, for the name. I was 14, and I believed him. I believed him right up until the moment I told him I was pregnant at 15 and watched his face do something I did not have words for yet. He asked, "Who knows?" And I told him, "Just you." And he said, "Good," then made a phone call. The clinic was in Downriver, one of those places that does not advertise. You find it because someone tells you where it is. He drove, and I sat in the passenger seat, and we did not speak. He signed the consent form because I was a minor and legally I could not consent to my own procedure, so he consented for me. I remember the pen he used, black ink, Mont Blanc, the same pen he used to sign closing documents on houses and contracts with the Archdiocese. I remember the sound it made on the paper. 45 minutes later it was done. "This is for your protection," he told me on the drive home. "You will understand that when you are older." I understood it immediately. Protection had nothing to do with me. Here is what I have never said before. There's a part of me, not a small part, and I'm done pretending it's small, that respected the absolute precision of how he did it, the clinical efficiency, The legal structures, the way he turned love into paperwork and paperwork into weapons, the sheer fucking competence of dismantling a daughter. I don't know if that makes me sick or just honest, and I stopped trying to decide. What I do know is he taught me everything I needed to destroy him. He just didn't know he was teaching me. At 16, I got pregnant again, and this time I told no one. I moved into a women's shelter in Ypsilanti, had the baby in a county hospital, named him Elias, kept him. My father found out 6 months later when someone from the church saw me at a Walmart. He sent his lawyer, Harold Kessler, 60-something with permanent coffee breath and a cross lapel pin, telling me your father wants you to know that the door is open if you are willing to make certain accommodations. I asked what accommodations, and Harold explained adoption, closed, a family already selected, Christian and stable. And I could finish school, go to college, my father would pay for everything. When I asked what happens if I say no, Harold set a document on the table between us and told me then this gets filed tomorrow. It was the Disinheritance drafted and notarized, waiting only for the county clerk. He is giving you a choice, Harold told me. I read all 3 pages, then looked at Harold and told him to file it, and when he tried to speak I cut him off. My name is Vance now, my mother's name, file the fucking document, and tell him I said to choke on his legacy. Harold filed it the next day. And 21 years later, he was sitting in the back corner of the Crystal Grand Ballroom drinking red wine and watching me like I was a bomb he could not defuse. He had no idea I had known he was coming. Elias died 3 years ago from a fentanyl overdose at 19 years old. They found him in a motel outside Ann Arbor. Blue when the paramedics arrived, and the dose was not recreational, it was lethal on contact. I buried him in a county cemetery under a stone I could afford. My father never knew Elias existed. Except I told him. Sort of. 4 years ago, when I started making real money, I did something I cannot fully defend. I hired a digital artist, gave them photos of Elias, aged him up, created a narrative of my son doing well. College, good kid, stays out of trouble. I sent the images to my father's office anonymously with no return address, just photos and a note. Your grandson. Thought you should know what you missed. I did it twice a year, birthdays and Christmas. And after Elias died, I kept doing it. AI-generated images of graduation photos and Thanksgiving dinners. A life that did not exist anymore. I wanted him to see what he had erased. I wanted him to feel the gap. I did not think about metadata, did not think about anyone reverse searching the images, and I definitely did not think about my brother. Victor Langford is 2 years older than me. Went to Michigan State, took over a third of my father's real estate practice, married a woman from Bloomfield Hills, 2 kids, Presbyterian. When I was thrown out, Victor said nothing, and when I called him once, just once, at 23, broke, asking if he could loan me $500, he told me I support Dad's decision. I think you should respect that. I hung up and did not speak to him again for 16 years, until 3 months ago when he called me. Sloan, he opened like we had talked yesterday, we need to meet. I asked why, and he told me Dad's dying, pancreatic cancer, 6 months, maybe less, and he wants to make things right before he goes. There is a project, a big one, needs family continuity for the investors, and there is a trust issue, legal needs your signature. I reminded him I was legally severed from the family 21 years ago, and Victor assured me we can fix that. Reinstatement, Harold already drafted it, you sign and you are back in, full inheritance. He is talking 7 figures Sloan. I let the silence sit, then asked when. I need to stop here because this is where people disagree. My father was dying, and he wanted to use me one more time to clean up a financial mess and sell a story to investors. Some people say I should have told him to go to hell and hung up. Others say that would have meant losing the only chance to stand in the same room with him again. And then there is a third group that says none of this happens if I had not spent 4 years sending him fake photographs of a dead grandson. Honestly, I cannot fully argue with that group. I have tried. What do you think? React with lightning if Richard Langford is the main villain. Fire if the situation itself was the real problem. Skull if I made this worse myself. I read the comments on this section more carefully than any other, because this is the part I am still figuring out myself. I started my company with $50,000 and the documents say it was a small business loan. but the documents are wrong. Lily, my daughter, was 4 and had pneumonia, the kind that does not go away, specialist visits and medications, and I was working 2 jobs and losing ground. I met a man in a bar who said he knew someone who could help with paperwork, tax returns and bank statements, adjustments he called them. I paid him $800 and 2 weeks later I had documents that said I made $63,000 the previous year, which I did not. I used those documents to secure the loan and built Vance Forensic Design on that loan. The company is worth $4.2 million now with 31 employees and clients in 7 states. If anyone audits the original loan application, it all collapses, and I have known this for 11 years. I have never told anyone, not even Lily. My company does 2 things that should not go together: forensic accounting and interior design. Specifically, we help people who have money they should not have create spaces that look legitimate. A lawyer who won a settlement he is not supposed to talk about, a tech executive with stock options that vested in a gray area, a real estate developer who needs his property to look family-friendly for investors who care about optics. We do not do anything illegal, we just make legal things look better, and it turns out I am very good at that. It turns out I learned it from my father. The invitation came 4 weeks after Victor called, embossed and formal with my name spelled right. The Langford family cordially invites you to a celebration of legacy and commitment at the Crystal Grand Ballroom. I held it under the lamp in my kitchen and looked for the lie, and it took me 6 minutes to find it. The event was not a family reunion, it was a donor cultivation event, 20 investors, 50 church members, 100 social climbers, and me as the prodigal daughter narrative gift-wrapped for evangelical money. My father was not making amends, he was closing a deal. I hired a private investigator named Denise Kemper, former Detroit PD, now freelance, specializes in family law and financial malfeasance. I gave her 3 names: Richard Langford, Victor Langford, Harold Kessler, and when she asked what am I looking for, I told her anything that should not be there. She came back in 12 days and told me your brother has been visiting your father once a week for 19 years, including the years he told people he supported the estrangement. And the trust fund your father mentioned is not a trust fund, it is a shell. There was $11 million in it in 2007, and there is $1.3 million in it now. I asked, where did it go? And Denise explained 3 places. A property development deal in Dearborn that went sideways, your brother's mortgage, and payments to a consultancy that does not exist. Meaning someone has been pulling money out for 16 years and your father either does not know or has been pretending not to. I sat with that for a long time, then asked the question I was afraid to ask. Elias, my son, the overdose, is there any way to trace the source? Denise looked at me for a long time, then opened a file. The fentanyl that killed Elias came from a batch linked to a supplier in Downriver. The same supplier who sold to a man named Aaron Pfeiffer. And Aaron Pfeiffer owed a significant favor to someone who helped him avoid a distribution charge in 2018. That someone was connected to a lawyer who did work for Victor. Not proof, not even close, but enough that I started sleeping with my phone turned off. I did not tell Lily I was going to the event. She is 20 now, sophomore at Wayne State studying social work, and she has never met her grandfather. She knows the story. Some of it, but not all. The day before the event, I sat her down and told her there is something I need to do tomorrow. It is going to be public. It might get ugly. I need you to know I thought about this. She asked, what are you doing? And I told her I am going to see your grandfather. Her face did not change when she asked why. And I explained because he is dying, and because he wants something from me, and because I have spent 21 years waiting for him to need me more than I needed him. She asked, what are you going to do? And I did not answer. Lily looked at me for a long time, then asked, can I come? And I told her no. When she asked why, I said because what I am about to do is not justice, it is documentation, and I do not want you to see me do it. She nodded, then asked the question I was hoping she would not ask. Do you need to do this? I thought about that and told her no, but I am going to. I arrived at the Crystal Grand at 6:47 in the evening and the event started at 7. I wore a black suit with no jewelry and hair pulled back, looking like I was attending a deposition, which I was. Harold Kessler was standing near the coat check, and when he saw me, his face did something. I walked up to him and he greeted me as Miss Vance, and I told him Sloan is fine. He mentioned your father is very glad you came, and I asked, is he? Harold hesitated, then leaned in slightly, explaining there are some documents, reinstatement papers. If you could sign before the evening begins, it would help thee, and I cut him off. No. When he said I am sorry, I clarified I am not signing anything before I hear what he has to say. Harold's face tightened as he protested, Miss Vance. The entire premise of this evening, and I interrupted again, is that I am here. And I am, but I am not signing anything until I decide I want to. I walked past him into the ballroom. The room was already half full with faces I recognized. Church people, developers, a city councilman, a woman who used to teach my Sunday school class and told me once that unwed mothers were a social contagion. She smiled at me and I did not smile back. My father stood near the front talking to a group of men in suits, looking thin, the kind of thin that comes from not being able to eat, his suit hanging differently than it used to. He saw me and for 3 seconds neither of us moved, then he excused himself and walked toward me. Sloan, his voice was the same, deeper maybe, but the same. I responded with Richard and he flinched, just slightly, because I had never called him by his first name before. He told me I am glad you came and I said you made it hard to say no. He explained I want to talk, really talk. After the program there is a room, just us, I have things I need to say. I told him I am sure you do, and he studied my face before observing you are angry. I said I am a lot of things, and he continued I understand, I do, but I hope, then stopped to breathe, I hope you can hear me, that is all I am asking. I looked at him, this man who signed a paper that erased me, who drove me to a clinic and signed another paper, and never asked if I was afraid, and I saw something I did not expect. He looked small. I told him okay, and he nodded, relieved, then turned and walked back to his group. I stood there and felt the weight of the yellow envelope in my purse. The program started at 7:15 with a pastor I did not recognize opening with a prayer, thanking God for family and legacy and the opportunity to build the kingdom through wise stewardship. Then came a slideshow with photos of my father young, in a hard hat at a construction site, shaking hands with a mayor, holding a giant check for a church building fund. No photos of me, one photo of Victor, several of his kids. The narrative was clear. A man who built something, a family continuing his work. I was not in the story, but I was about to be. Victor stood to speak. Opening with my father taught me that a man is not measured by what he accumulates but by what he builds, and what he builds is not buildings but people. I watched him, his suit, his easy smile, the way he made eye contact with the investors in the front row, looking so much like our father it hurt. He continued, some of you know that our family has been estranged from my sister for many years. That estrangement was painful for everyone, but tonight, he paused and smiled. Tonight we are healing that wound. My sister Sloan is here. The room turned to look at me and I did not move. Victor went on, and I want to say publicly we are grateful. Forgiveness is the cornerstone of legacy, and tonight we are living that. Applause, light and polite, but real. And I felt my jaw tighten. Victor sat down and my father stood. He walked to the microphone slowly, each step deliberate, and when he reached it he stood there for 11 seconds and said nothing. Not calculation, not performance, just a man who had run out of ways to delay. I have made mistakes, he began, his voice quieter than I expected. I have hurt people I love. I have chosen things that mattered less over people who mattered more. And I am standing here tonight because I am dying. The room went completely still. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, 6 months maybe, and someone gasped. And when you are dying, he continued, you think about what you leave behind. I have spent 50 years building buildings and businesses and reputation. But the thing I am most proud of, he stopped and looked directly at me, is standing in the back of this room, and I threw her away. I stopped breathing. 21 years ago, my daughter made a choice I did not agree with, and instead of helping her, I erased her legally, financially, socially. I told people she was gone. I told myself it was for her protection. He paused. It was not. It was for mine. The room was silent as he called out, Sloan, I do not expect your forgiveness, I do not deserve it, but I am asking, in front of all these people, for the chance to make it right. There is a development project, $47 million, waterfront. It will employ 300 people. It will change the East Side, but the investors, good people, faith-driven people, they need to know that this is a family legacy. They need to see continuity. They need to see that I raised someone who can carry this forward. He looked at me and told me I need you, and there it was. Not, I am sorry, but I need you. I stood and every face in the room turned toward me. I walked to the front slowly, my heels on the carpet making no sound, and when I reached the microphone, my father stepped aside. I looked out at 200 people, then opened my purse and took out the yellow envelope. My name is Sloan Marie Vance, I began, and 21 years ago my father had a judge remove me from his will, his estate, and his legal family. I was 17, pregnant and inconvenient. I opened the envelope and explained this is the document, 3 pages, notarized, filed with Oakland County. It does not just disinherit me, it erases me and any descendants thereof. I held it up and continued. My daughter, his granddaughter, was erased before she was born. I set the document on the podium and told them my father just told you he made a mistake. He told you he wants to make it right, but what he did not tell you is why I am here. I looked at him and explained he needs my signature. There is a trust fund, $11 million. Except there is not, there is $1.3 million. The rest is gone. And to access what is left, to hide the gap from the IRS and from his investors, he needs an heir to sign paperwork that makes it look like a clean family transfer. Faces in the crowd shifted. He does not want reconciliation. I told them he wants a clean audit. But here is the thing, I said, I did not come here to sign anything. I reached into the envelope again and told them I came here to read something. I pulled out a second document. Older, the paper softer. This is a consent form signed by Richard Langford on August 9th, 2001. It authorized a medical procedure on a 15-year-old minor. That minor was me. The procedure was an abortion I did not want. The room made a sound, not a gasp, but something deeper. He drove me to a clinic in Downriver. He signed the form. I was not allowed to refuse. And when it was done, he told me it was for my protection. I looked at him and said it was not, it was for his reputation. I set the document down and continued. 1 year later, I got pregnant again. I kept the baby. His name was Elias. He died 3 years ago from a fentanyl overdose at 19 years old. My voice cracked, and I did not try to hide it. My father never knew Elias existed, but I told him anyway. I sent him pictures, fake ones, AI-generated images of a grandson who was already dead. I did it because I wanted him to see what he had thrown away. I paused and admitted that makes me a liar, and maybe it makes me cruel. I have thought about that a lot. But here is what I know. I told the room, my father built his entire legacy on a story, the story of a righteous man, a man of faith, a man who made hard choices for good reasons. I picked up the Disinheritance document and explained this is the real story. A man who erased his daughter because she was inconvenient, who forced a medical procedure on a 15-year-old, who is now dying and needs that same daughter to save a deal. I folded the paper and told them I am not here to forgive him. I am not here to destroy him. I am here to make sure there is a record. I looked directly into the phone that I knew was streaming this live on the church's Facebook page and stated my name is Sloan Marie Vance. I am the daughter of Richard Langford, and everything I just said is true. I set the microphone down and walked out. The FBI agents were waiting in the hallway. I had called them 36 hours earlier and given them copies of everything. The trust fund documents, the shell company records, the timeline of Victor's involvement. They did not arrest anyone that night. That is not how it works, but they took statements and they opened a file, and my father's last deal died in that hallway. Victor found me in the parking lot and told me you destroyed him. I answered no, I documented him, and he asked, what is the difference? I looked at my brother, this man I used to share a room with, who taught me how to ride a bike, and told him you have been stealing from him for 16 years. You set me up to take the fall for it. And I cannot prove this, but I think you had something to do with Elias. His face did not change when he said you are insane. And I replied maybe, but the FBI does not think so. I gave them everything 3 days ago. You are not the target tonight, Victor, but you will be. I got in my car and he stood there in the parking lot and watched me drive away. Lily was waiting at my apartment, sitting on the bathroom floor, not crying, just sitting. She told me I watched it, the live stream, and I sat down next to her. I thought I was ready, she said. I was not, and we sat there for a long time. Then, she asked, did you mean it, that you are not trying to destroy him? And I said yes. She asked then, what were you trying to do? And I thought about that before answering. I was trying to make sure that in 50 years, when someone searches his name, they find the truth, not the story he built, the truth. She asked, does that make it better? And I told her no, but it makes it real. My father died 4 months later. The development deal collapsed. The trust fund was frozen pending investigation. Victor was indicted on 11 counts of embezzlement and wire fraud, and Harold Kessler lost his law license. I did not go to the funeral, and when Lily asked if I regretted it, I told her the truth. I did not know yet. Here is what I have never said before. There is a part of me, not a small part, that wanted him to call after everything, after the ballroom and the FBI and the deal died. I wanted him to call and say it was not about the money. He never did. He died still believing I had misunderstood him. Maybe I did. Maybe the thing I wanted him to apologize for was not the thing he thought he had done wrong. Maybe we were always going to talk past each other. I am standing in my office right now and it is November again. The air smells like rust and dead lake water and something burning that stopped burning a long time ago. On my desk sits a photo of Elias, real, not AI generated, and next to it the yellow envelope, empty now, and next to that a letter, unopened, that arrived 6 months after my father died, postmarked 2 days before he passed. I have not opened it, and I do not know if I will. Lily asked me once what I wanted people to understand about all of this, and I did not have an answer then, but I think I do now. I do not need people to agree with what I did. I do not need them to forgive me for the lies I told, or the ways I made it worse. I just need them to know that it happened. That a girl was erased at 17 and spent 21 years building a record that could not be. That legacy is not what you build, but what you bury, and sediment does not disappear, it just waits. If this story made you feel something you were not expecting, you already know what to do. Not because I am asking, but because this only reaches the people who need it if it moves. There is something I did not tell you. My father's response when he found out I knew about the forced abortion consent form, when he found out I had kept it for 21 years. I have gone back and forth on this. If this reaches 100,000 people, I will tell it. Because some things deserve the right size room before they are spoken out loud. The people who end up here, I did not expect what you would become. You disagree with each other, you sometimes disagree with me, but you think before you type, and that is rarer than you know.